Are you talking to the chickens? Are they trying to escape?
Yeah.
And I think you're trying to be nice and winterize their coop so they're warm and no wind gets in. It's funny because during the winter you have to do this every time there's a high wind, but during the summer you have to keep it off because of the airflow, right?
Yep. I had some made up from last year, but I don't know anymore.
I don't either. I remember you putting them away though, so that it said something like, oh, so we have them next year, so we don't have to go through this again.
Yeah, here we are. They may have got thrown away at one point.
Maybe, especially with moving and all of that. Your camera's much better than mine.
What's that?
Your camera's much better than mine. So we had this old IBC container bladder left from when we had all the IBCs. We got rid of most of them when we moved, but this one we still had just sitting there. So what he went ahead and did was cut out this big piece and the small square and put them on the door, which he just fastened with zip ties, and that's going to keep the cold wind and air out, but still allow airflow. The coop is really made since we have very little cold days, and when we do, they're pretty extreme, but our chickens are adults and they're well insulated and they're healthy birds, so we're not the least bit worried about that. The important thing is that since we have 9-10 months of brutal heat, and even as early as late April and May we start reaching 90s and higher, so it's really important to have a lot of airflow in this, which is why these panels can just be taken off during the summer. And you can see these guys, their coop is an absolute mess, especially after all the rain. What's up with you? Always trying to escape. He's trying to get your coop insulated so that we can come out here and get the shavings laid down so you're nice and warm and have a nice clean coop. So here is the back door of the coop, which is actually just an old support for a mattress on a bed frame. And you can see during the summertime, the wind just blows through and keeps them nice and cool. If it was completely closed up in here, it would get so hot during the summer and probably mildew really bad. Hi.
It's not long enough, so we'll make it.
Okay. We've made a friend.
Seems that way.
I wonder if she's the little brown egg layer. And that's why she's acting funny, because that's her nest.
Okay.
Cool. Thank you. What do you think, girl? Yesterday, I came back and I brought the flashlight out here because I wanted to see what was going on with the girls. I hadn't seen them all week because I had been out of town, and they had a little nest in here, the little brown egg in it right up against this door. And I'm starting to wonder if this little one is the one that just started laying and is laying those brown eggs. Because she seems awfully protective and curious about what's going on in here, whereas everyone else is out there foraging and helping break down those pumpkins and some grasses I just threw in from the garden. I don't see any eggs in here today, huh? Nope. Is that your nest? You're getting awfully mad at me. Should I get out of the way? The funny thing is we don't have a rooster, so they're just eggs that are gonna freeze out here in the cold weather. They were out foraging, but they're running away way over there because I'm out here now. So last time it was supposed to get this cold was a few years ago, and it was supposed to be in the low 20s or teens. And it ended up snowing and getting down to 9 degrees, which is absolutely insane. So I'm wondering this year if we're going to go through the same thing, if they're going to say, well, it's not going to be quite that cold, and then it ends up being really cold and we experience things such as power outages. And I know people don't like talking about this because it makes people fearful, but I think it's a healthy thing to talk about. And when you're talking about personal experiences, it's pretty honest, because we did experience power outages when the weather was icy and cold, and it wasn't, we had what we call snow, but it wasn't really snow. It was just wet sleet, and it froze to the ground and made sheets of ice everywhere. So the roads were dangerous. So it was really difficult for people that needed to move somewhere where they had a warm place to stay if they had lost power, or a place to cook. So if you weren't prepared for that kind of winter weather, it was really awful. I know my parents at the time, my brother has some extensive needs, and so did my mom, and they needed to go to a place where it was warm, so they ended up finding a hotel. I helped them find a hotel, which wasn't the best condition, but it was better than being freezing at home. So the three of them and their puppy were able to go out and at least be warm, but it was scary traveling the roads for sure. And there were definitely some deaths due to the incident, and it was really scary. And we don't really talk about that a lot because people don't like to be afraid and don't like to be accused of making others fearful, but I think it's something real and honest that was experienced. I guess these girls are trying to hang out in the sun. This one's, oh, okay, she's fine. At first she stepped a little high and I was worried about her, but she is stepping to eat these greens over here that I just tossed in from the garden. So in conclusion, if our weather it only gets into the low 20s like they're saying it will be, everything should be fine. All of the plants are winter hardy varieties. They grow in cold weather. They do well in the frost. So I'm really good about planting things that grow in the winter in this time period. However, I do wonder what's going to happen with our blackberries because they're just starting to produce berries. So I'm not sure how that's going to be affected. I don't think we had berries planted the last time we got this kind of winter weather in. And as many of you either experienced or read or heard about, Texas power structure really isn't set up to handle a large amount of heaters and electricity that's being output by warming when it gets ridiculously low temperatures. So I'm not sure how we're going to handle that. We're great for summer, even we struggle with the power grid during the summer too down here. But winter, any kind of ice on things, we're just not really set up for that. The roads shut down when there's ice on the roads, when there's a thin layer of snow, because we don't really get snow. It basically just melts and turns to ice, and then you get dangerous sheets of ice or black ice everywhere, and that's really not fun, especially for people that don't know how to drive on those type of roads. Look at you down here lightening the mood. And I just grabbed all of these weeds out of the walkway path for the garden near the berries. So this girl's just coming over here and eating all of them. But it's so funny. This is the same exact chicken that was chasing us around in the coop, and now she's over here. So maybe she just likes hanging out with us. Or maybe she just knows all the good stuff is where we're at. Who knows? Probably pure coincidence. Now, because the weather's supposed to be wild, this blue barrel over here is a 55-gallon drum, and my husband's already went and refilled it all the way to the top with water just in case something happens. Our home, it was built quite a while ago, and it is pier and beam. It's grandfathered in, so it's up high, about 2 feet off the ground, and we had a lot of issues the first time that it froze down here with the pipes bursting, and we had just moved in, and it was a lot to take care of, water running everywhere in freezing cold weather, and we drained the pipes and all of that. But when it's that high off of the ground and you're not really built for winter weather, it happens. We cannot build up north. From what I gather, a lot of buildings, their foundations are built below the freeze line, below that frost line, to help prevent pipes. Well, we can't really do too much of that because the issue is that we have a high level of groundwater, and so when you dig down within the first few inches, it just starts filling up with water, and that's always an issue here. So it's kind of unfortunate because on top of making sure that the pipes are well insulated and we don't have to worry about them, it would be nice to be able to have something like a cellar that can store food underground, but here that's not possible. However, if we're able to close on this small property that we're looking at up more central Texas area, we should be able to do some kind of above ground food storage, or maybe put something there and cover it, hill it over with dirt, so that we can actually have some food storage outside, which would be really cool. But we'll see what happens. It's just kind of a pipe dream because we're still learning the area up there. And I know I was really surprised about how high the winds get blowing over the land there compared to here. We have a lot of trees up right here surrounding the property, and I think that it actually acts as a wind barrier pretty well. The problem is the trees are getting old, and as I've shown before, they've actually started breaking, and that's why I had to clean up all those trees in the backyard over the last couple weeks. So you can see this hanging up, like standing up on its side over here. And what this does is right in this opening down here, it gets laid flat. So it blocks the birds in, and it can be filled up with shavings to help insulate it and keep it warm. So during the summertime, all of this predator wire actually helps the chicken house to breathe. So there's a nice airflow and it's not getting too hot or stuffy inside. And during the winter, it does the same thing, and honestly, it looks like a lot of cold air would flow through it, but it really doesn't. The main area that the air likes to flow through is that front door. So as long as that's blocked off, we're fine. The back door, you saw the plastic wasn't enough to go all the way down, but it's really not an issue because the wind doesn't usually blow that direction, and there are trees in between our yard and our neighbor's yard that kind of block that off. So I think it makes a big difference. Now, my mom has plans to come out here, and she wants a completely different setup and a new chicken coop and to build up the backyard. So I think that'll be really exciting to see how it kind of develops. And of course, we'll be here to help out with any physical labor or anything else that is needed. Now, if you look at this little girl right here, this red one, we have taken her, we have looked at her feet, all sorts of things. She has no bumblefoot, she doesn't have any fractures, but one of her feet she is struggling to put her weight on still. It's gotten a lot better. I think whenever the okra plants and things were in here, that she was stepping on them, helping sift through the compost, and it actually hurt her foot. But she seems to be getting better. I've wondered a few times if keeping her was the right thing with all of this going on, because there's nothing that we can do to help her out, but it seems that she's healing, so I'm gonna give it a little more time and see if she continues to get better. But it looks like so far the answer is yes. Thank goodness. I think my next order of business is going to run to the feed store in a little bit and get those shavings. Now, I won't be putting them out here. This is just kind of like a compost area where they're breaking all of that down. And I'm not sure after everything's broken down if they'll continue to have access to this area or if I'll move their access to a different area and let them kind of forage out there. This would actually make a really good art garden area once prepared properly.